Very good evening to our esteemed guest, all the dignitaries present here, and our viewers. On behalf of the organizing committee, I take great pleasure to welcome you all for this Vtalks guest lecture series organized by Vidyalankar Jnanpith Trust. It is my privilege to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Gaurav Gandhi. He is a visual thinker, an innovation enthusiast, and a manager, strategic academic alliances, Tata Sons. He is always admired for simplifying the business processes for his stakeholders in a very much impactful way. He is known for building strategic engagements with global universities. These strategic programs are designed to enhance capabilities for global products and services. A popular proverb says, a single conversation with a wise man is worth reading 1,000 books. This aptly describes Mr. Gaurav Gandhi. He reads immensely and brings in diverse perspectives on the table to understand the fundamentals of organizational behavior, principles of management, marketing, finance, accounting, effective business communication, and much more. An authentic conversation with this avid reader will surely make us learn and remember many things. He believes that reading helps to widen our knowledge, expand our perspective, improve our thinking skills, and reduces stress. He has read multiple books and has written 20 book reviews on LinkedIn in 2021. The aim was to inspire others to pick up reading as a habit. In his talk today, he would be sharing best practices on becoming an effective reader and his key takeaways from the top 5 books that he has read in 2021. In today's fast-paced world, reading is becoming a dying habit as there are faster alternatives available on social media. Mr. Gaurav Gandhi firmly believes in the power of reading. He has also published a 3-part article titled Your Story, Your Brand on leveraging LinkedIn for personal branding in the Women Power Up Network newsletter. Mr. Gaurav has shared the best tips and practices to accelerate your LinkedIn journey in this particular article. He regularly writes on LinkedIn on varied topics like innovation, creativity, design thinking, mentoring, career coaching, and much more. You all can follow his posts using hashtag Gaurav Shares on LinkedIn. He is also the recipient of the Silver Mentor Award at TCS in May 2021. Now, I request everyone to please mute their microphones, put off their camera, and write their questions or comments in the chat box. At the end of the session, the guest speaker will answer all your questions. Now, I would like to request Gaurav sir to take over this session.
Thank you, Professor Mitali. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, so let me know if I can go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank Vidyalankar Group, Professor Saurabh Mehta, Professor Deshmukh for giving me this opportunity. And I believe it will share this based on my experience why reading is becoming a dying habit and reading is important. So I want to ask audience a question, and if you want to keep it interactive, if you can put in the chat window, if you can put in the chat window, what was the last book you read? Just put the name of the book in the chat window. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Sure. So as we are getting the responses, let me share. So in this talk over next 45 minutes or so, I'll be sharing about why should we read. I will also cover what should we read, how should we read, and some of the best practices around reading. I would also share about my reading journey in 2020 and 2021 and top 5 books and the key takeaways. I hope this will inspire you in your reading journeys. So let me ask this question and let me get some responses from the audience. Why do you think reading is important? You may consume media through various means. There are audio means, there are video means. But why reading is still important? If you can share your thoughts in the chat window, that would be great discussion point. Okay, so if you can share your thoughts about why reading is important. Why do you think we should read? Reading give new ideas. That's great, Professor Mehta. But people think that there are other ways also to get new ideas. But why we should do reading? Why reading still is important? That's great, Shubham. It enhances our knowledge, and I think I really like it. It makes me happy because I'll be sharing some facts around how reading makes you happy and how reading can reduce your stress. So awesome. Let me continue with this. Okay. So recently, what happened? I read one of the blog posts from one of the senior leaders from TCS, Mr. Abhinav Kumar, and he wrote a very fantastic post last week. It was how many books does a CEO read on an average every year? So on an average, as per Fast Company, a CEO reads around 60 books. If you take examples of some of the top business leaders globally, Bill Gates, he reads almost 50 books a year. Warren Buffett reads, close to 1,000 pages, where he goes through a lot of financial reports and data. And the reason why a lot of business people are voracious readers is because this activity has a lot of benefits and advantages, and we will come to that, but I'm just giving you a context that why should we read, because reading is an activity which is followed by leaders across the globe, and as they say, reading make you a great leader. And why should you read daily is an important point, which is relevant based on the scientific research which is done by South African uh, Academy of Psychology and Social Sciences. They came up with multiple benefits of reading. One of the benefits was it enhances brain connectivity and function. So basically, your neurological activity within the brains increases. Second, and which I really relate to is it improves your creativity and rationality. Creativity is one skill which is a differentiating factor in 21st century. How it increases creativity is because it takes you in a mode of visualization. You form images, you form scenarios based on reading, and that improves your creativity. Third, it makes us mentally more flexible. Because we are reading variety of topic, it increases our mental flexibility. Fourth, and which is becoming increasingly important, uh, is the deprivation of sleep we are seeing across all generations because of consumption of social media, and because of the blue light which is emitted by our devices. And hence reading a book, typically a physical book, is a great way to have a better sleep, and also low helps you reduce your stress level. And finally, the studies has also found that reading improves your self-esteem and decreases your rate of depression. So there are multiple benefits of reading. I am sharing just few of them here. This is a fantastic quote by Somerset Maugham, who was famous playwright and novelist. To acquire the habit of reading is to construct for yourself a refuge from almost all the miseries of life. So for me, if I have a good book in my hand, that is one of the best feeling I can get, because I can get lost in the world which is very different from what is around us. Now we know why we should read, but the question comes as what should I read? So the question is because as a as a reader who is starting his journey on reading, and I'm not talking about academic books or your course curriculum, that is of course part of your day-to-day routine, but I'm talking about reading something which is beyond your normal day-to-day work requires. The big question comes, what should I read? Should I read fiction? Should I read non-fiction? Should I read self-help? Should I read business book? There's so many books. There are millions of books which are being published every year. Now, my take on that is it depends on your purpose. So I can't define what you should read. It depends on what you want to get out of reading. For example, I have, and which is the last point I wrote in this slide, is I have a book for every occasion. So during the breaks after lunch, I typically read a book which is inspiring. So today I'm reading The Creation of Wealth, which is inspiring story of Tata's by R.M. Lala. I might in the morning read some business book which helps me get a new idea about technology. On a weekend, I may read some fiction, something which is more relaxing and engaging, right? Maybe on a vacation, I would read something about creativity or say fitness. So it depends on the occasion, it depends on your purpose, what you want to read. But if you want to start, fiction is a good place to start. You can pick up a light book. There are biographies, there are non-fictions, there are books around technology, spirituality, creativity. And based on your interest, based on your liking, you can pick up a book and start reading. Now, I surveyed a lot of my friends, some of them are there on the talk too, asking what excuses people give for not reading. So, what is your excuse? If I may ask you to type on the chat window, what is your excuse for not reading? So, I hear often, I don't have time. That's the biggest excuse I heard. Then there are excuses like, I can't focus, time, interest. Okay. Akshita. That's the common excuse. What else I would like to hear from the audience? What are the excuses which you have faced, or the challenges you have faced while continuing reading? Inconsistency. That's a great one. We'll talk about that. What else? So you may start a book today, you may read 10 pages, and then you lost the track because you have other activities in your life which are more kind of engaging and more exciting. And the book is lying somewhere in the corner, and you pick it up after 3 months and you have no interest in reading that book again. Concentration, yeah, that's one of the key thing. In fact, it is closely related to reading, because I strongly believe that reading also helps increase your concentration and focus. That's the actually a benefit of reading. So let me share my screen again and take from there. So these are some of the excuses which have see don't have time, can't focus, inconsistency, no motivation, can't read all books cover to cover. And I will share some best practices which you can adopt to improve your reading habit. Now, I have practiced a lot of these best practices in my reading journey, and hence I would like to share it. One starting point would be, if you are picking up a book, read about the author. And the beauty of YouTube, especially, is you can, in fact, see a quick talk about the author. So, for example, if I'm reading about this book called Digital Body Language, which is the latest book I just finished yesterday, and I'm going to write a review on LinkedIn this week, is written by Erika Dhawan. And Erika talks about how do you build trust and connection in current virtual world, because you are whether you are in academia, whether you are in business, whether you are working or entrepreneur, you are mostly working remotely in current sense. But how do you develop that trust and connection? Now, one thing which I can do is I can go and quickly check if there's a talk Erica has given on this book. If she has spoken, what is the content she is going to talk about, which helped me understand that this concept is important in my life. If I read this concept and if I get, say, a couple of takeaways, I can easily apply them in my context. I can easily apply them to better my habits, better my life. That's the first thing. Second thing, you read introduction, initial chapter, and parts from each chapter. Now, one of the uh, secrets I'll tell you, uh, and you will see a number of people who are voracious readers, they would not finish all their books cover to cover. I also have several books which I have not been able to finish. The reason is either the book is too heavy, the book is too complex, or I have already got what I wanted from the book, and basically author is extending his hypothesis by sharing more details. Right? So typically reading an introduction would give you an idea how do you how should you approach that book, what are key things you can use quickly. Initial chapters would give an idea, and part from each chapter would give you an interest of where you should focus on. So this is more to do with, if you are initial leader, if you are trying to pick up a book which may or may not interest you. Now, how do you start? So starting is a key thing, and uh, I typically have a habit of reading at least 50 to 80 pages every day. So which means if a typical book is 200 to 250 pages, which means I can finish a book easily in 5 days. So if you pick up reading habit with 20 pages a day, you can easily finish a book in 10 days, which means even if you take 2 weeks, you will be able to finish 2 books a month, which is a great thing. Now, the key thing is to choose an interesting book. So, so if you are a student, you may choose a book which may be around designing your career, which may be around disruption of technology, which may be around something which excites you. For me, it's creativity. For me, it's innovation. For me, it's business storytelling. So something which excites you, because that gives you motivation to continue reading. Now, next is create the right environment. This is very important hack which I used. For me, the right environment is when book is in front of you. So if you have a table right beside your bed, ensure that you have couple of books or at least one or two books which are kept there. The reason when you go for a nap in the afternoon or sleeping at night, you have a opportunity to pick up a book very quickly, just which is at your arm's length. Second is I have a table right beside where I work, and where I have created two columns. One are the books which I have read. Second are the books for which I have to write the review. So which means whenever I go out, either in my working space or my sleeping space, I have books around me. This is very important, because if you keep a book hidden inside a almirah or hidden inside a drawer, you will never have motivation to read it. So keep books in vicinity and visible. Remove distraction. This is the biggest, I think, the hindrance, which is you have to remove any distraction in terms of, especially phone or a tablet or a social media. Now the challenge is, I typically I'll come to when I read, or what are the options within a day when you can have better time for reading. I typically keep my phone in silent, or I keep my phone in other room when I'm reading, because if you have the phone in your hand or in your pocket while you are reading, you have sudden ping notification from social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then you tend to go there, and then you tend to break your focus, or break the line of reading which you were doing, and that will hamper your concentration. Now I typically have a slot. So typically I start reading in the morning. After I finish my journaling and meditation, I read for about 15-20 minutes. I also pick up book when I'm taking a break between the work. So I have worked for 2 hours. I will then take 15 minutes to read at least 15-20 pages for a book. It refreshes me. It gives me new idea. It takes me out of that world. Also, you can read when you are going for sleeping at bed. That's one of the best times to read. But have at least a couple of slots in a day, and if possible you can define those slots so that you devote that time. So even if you take 15 minutes slot of two slots, you will be devoting 30 minutes to start with for your reading. It can be one in the morning, one in the night, but be consistent. Now, last but not the least, there are other ways also people read. They also listen to audiobooks. That's a great way if you are doing some course, if you are say exercising in gym, or doing some household work. You can use Audible or some other form of audiobooks. Um, though I haven't find it very effective in terms of retaining what is being said. Okay, and I'll come to retention part very soon. You can also use sites like Goodreads. This is more about social reading. So I've defined my goal in Goodreads that I would read say 30 books in 2021, and I've already put that I have read say 20 books, and I have 10 more books to go. So it basically encourages me to see where I am. It tracks, and I can track my progress. I can talk to other readers, etc. Now, one other key point with people face as a challenge: how to retain what I have read. Right? And I have started. I picked up this habit recently. I would say last 2 years or so. Before that, I used to read a lot. I used to retain some of it, but a lot of it was not. I was not able to remember, and hence I was not able to connect the facts. But what I found effective is I'm today using a highlighter. If you have a physical book, that's a great way, because a book is your personal books and you don't need to return it. You can easily highlight. So in this book, if you see, I have highlighted the entire book on my key points, the notes which I want to share, the things which I want to use as a key takeaway, the things which I want to use while writing my book summary. You know, what is an important quote, what is an important figure. So that is important. So because once you write, and you can write it in your notebook, you can write it in your idea journal, you can write it, in a separate book where you take notes of what you would like to do with the reading. uh, Second is identify what key takeaways you want to use. So, for example, I read about digital body language, and I know that now how should I respond to emails, or when should I respond to text messages, when should I not respond to text messages outside my work hours. So these are key takeaways which I am now using in my life. And similarly, you can use these key takeaways from the books which you read. Third is sharing or learning on different platforms. I prefer LinkedIn. You can use other platforms too, uh, because this is a great way to make sure that you retain your learning. So when I shared the summary of a 250-page book in a 3,000 character post on LinkedIn, I ensure that I get the best points for my viewers. So when I shared the summary of the psychology of money recently last week, the post today has 10,000 plus views and probably 100 plus likes, and 50 plus comments. And there are people from across the globe who are reading what are the key points. They are relating to those key points. They are engaging with the post, and they are also giving me insight what else they like from the book, or they take what else was the takeaway from the book. So that is a great social way to retain what you have read. And finally, you give a book talk. So today I'm giving a talk about reading. I've given multiple talks in my own organization, and that's a great way to retain what you read. Okay, so I will like to take a pause and see if there are any questions before I proceed. So I talked about why we should read, how should I read, what can be some reading best practices, and how you can retain what you are reading. Are there any questions from the audience at this point of time? I would request if they can put it in the chat window. I would just like to have at least some of your reactions, because then it will make it more interactive. You can use emojis. Are you able to relate to what I shared? Yes, that's a great question, Saurabh. We will talk about it. Yes, Professor Mehta. How do you select books? I would share definitely. Are there any other queries from the audience?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
There's one question from Devesh Mathur. He is asking, can we start multiple books at a time?
Sure, sure. So, madam, I'm just taking those questions. I have 20 more minutes on the top five books as a takeaway, and we can cover those questions both from Devesh and Professor Mehta. Thanks.
Okay.
How do you keep continually? Okay, that's a great question. So, okay, let me ask a very quick question to all the listeners. Can you type in the chat window how many books have you read in 2020? Just type the number. It can be zero also. Two. Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, so let me continue, and I'll come to the questions very quickly. So this is my reading journey in 2020. So 2020, I picked up 24 books, almost two books per month, and the books were ranging from visual thinking to coaching to habits to innovation to higher education, to psychology, uh, startup entrepreneurship, and so on. Now I gained a lot of things from this book, but my serious reading journey started several years back. I used to attend this Tata Literature Live. It was one of the biggest literary festival in India pre-COVID, and I met some of the great personalities. So here I am with Mr. N. Chandra, chairman of Tata Group, getting signed copy of his book, which is Digital Nation, fantastic book about bridging the digital divide and how can digital help in India's growth story. And in second photo, I'm with William Remple, who is a famous historian, author of The Anarchy. The thing is, these are great opportunities for these were great opportunities for me to meet these people, get their books signed, listen to them in person. Today a lot of these things are happening virtually, but this is something which inspired me, which I wanted to share. There's so many author signed copies which I have, from ranging from Professor Yunus, from who is a Nobel Prize winner from Bangladesh Grameen Bank, from Professor Clayton from Harvard, or from a lot of business leaders whom I met and uh, got their book signed. So these are cherished memories which basically inspire me to read more. Now let me come quickly to top five books and key takeaways for all of you so that you can take something from this session too. This is, I think, one of the books which I will highly recommend. Uh, the reason why this book is recommended, because last year has changed a lot of things. Pandemic has changed a lot of things for us. One of the biggest challenge which pandemic has brought is the challenge with lack of focus because of so many activities which are lined up in our personal professional life, and especially with people who are working in roles, who are in academia, who are students, or who are working in um, knowledge work area. I would say this is a big challenge. So Carl Newport wrote this book, and I shared some of the key takeaways. These are also available on LinkedIn if you may like. But I would like to share some of those with you. So, what he shared, the point three, key to developing deep work habit is to move beyond good intention and add routine and rituals to our working life. So, I've adopted a lot of these working habits. So, I moved out of all social media except LinkedIn. I've stopped surfing social networking site randomly during the day, uh, and hence it has improved my productivity and my state of concentration. Because the challenge with what author says is it requires a huge willpower every day if you don't have a routine and ritual to have a focused work, and hence we spend a lot of time on autopilot, and becomes difficult to prevent the trivial stuff creeping into our schedules. Someone calls, someone messages, someone pings, someone sends a viral video on WhatsApp. There's a video going on where what would happen if people join back their office after work from home. And the thing is, people are sharing it left, right, and center. And if you basically are working on an important report and someone send you a WhatsApp, and you check that video, it takes on an average 20-25 minutes to get back your concentration. That's proven by research. So he said that focus on a couple of things. One, what is widely important, small number of ambitious outcome you want to achieve. So I wanted to write 60 days continuously on LinkedIn. I wanted to write book reviews for 20 books, which I have done. So what is important outcome for you to achieve, and then you devote your deep work hours on them. Act on lead measures, which is basically attention to improving the behavior you directly control in the near future. That will have a positive impact on your long-term goals. And keep a scorecard. Scorecard is what you are achieving more on a quantitative basis. And finally, keep a cadence of accountability. So it is, do you have an accountability partner? Do you have someone whom you can share this is what I have achieved today? So I have accountability group where I share every day what post I have written, and they give me feedback. Okay, this is a great post, or I like this point about this post. So this keeps me going. And have a strict shutdown ritual. This is very important, and I really love this because there is something called attention residue. So basically, if you don't write down your tasks before you sleep, it keeps on basically bothering you. You may not have a sound sleep. You may be anxious because you have not followed a shutdown ritual, which means you have not closed the open item which is there with you. So, uh, committing to a specific plan for a goal may not facilitate attainment of the goal, but it may also free cognitive resources for other pursuits. So that is why it is important. The second book which I recommend and which I wrote a review about is a creative confidence. And I say this word is creativity is something, curiosity is something which leads to creativity, and creativity is something which leads to innovation. And that is actually the key differentiating, skill in today's 21st century for anyone to have. Now, this book is written by Tom and David Kelly, who were the founders of IDEO, the top design firm in the world. And I strongly believe in what they shared, especially since I took up some creative activities like doodling last year. And the stories, my wife thought that I am I've never been an artist or someone who's creative. I can never even draw a circle, uh, in a better way. But I picked up something as a doodling, and today I post, almost regularly a new doodle on LinkedIn, and there is a great response about that. So what author says is creative confidence is a muscle, and it can be strengthened and improved with practice. So people think they are not creative. It's not the fact. And creativity is not only about being a great dancer or a musician or an artist or a filmmaker. You can be creative in any field which you are working in. Uh, the key point he also makes is creative thinkers don't jump to solution for an open-ended question. They basically look at possible solution. They are first willing to diverge, look at number of possibilities. Quantity is more important than quality, and then focus on converging on those ideas which are worth trying. Finally, series of small success can remove the doubt. So when I started doodling, I started with simple stick figure sketches. Then I moved to more complex sketch notes with colors. Okay, so that is important. And uh, one of the challenge with practicing creativity is having a comparison. So you might be creating an art, or you might be creating a report, or you might be writing a post, but you are comparing yourself to someone who's already top in that area. But that comparison basically hinders your creativity. It will never allow you to put out your best or put out your work out because you're comparing. So I've stopped comparing, and that's the reason I'm able to churn out as many posts or a doodle or anything which I would like as a creative endeavor. uh, think like a traveler. That's a very interesting point he make, which is about, see, when you are a traveler, when you go to a foreign country or a new city, you are very curious, right? You are not on cruise control. You are looking at things around you with curiosity. You are asking questions, why something is happening in a way it is happening, why this person is selling something, a new food item, should I try this? So you are looking everything with a fresh eye. um, and finally, you have to engage in any activity with a beginner mindset. It's like kid. So when kids start walking, if you see, they will fall a lot of times, okay, but they will continue doing so, and every time they do so, they improve a little bit. So it's a iterative, thing. I also keep an idea journal. That's a fantastic point I learned from this book. So every time I have an idea, and typically ideas comes to you when you are in relaxed attention. Typically, when you're going for a walk, or when you just woke up from sleep, or when you came out after bathing, that's when an idea is stuck. And if you don't write down that idea, the idea just disappears. So keeping an idea journal helps. And finally, uh, one of the biggest doubt people have is the fear of failure, fear of being judged, and fear of getting started. That you have to overcome if you want to be creative. third book which I read, and this book I would highly recommend. This is available as a free PDF also on the site of the author. Almanac of Naval Shrikant. Naval has been a visionary. He's in he has been the founder of AngelList, the startup funding venture funding. He's based out of Silicon Valley, and he's well known on platforms like Twitter and other places. And this book basically talks about his philosophy around happiness, around creating wealth. And it has amazing quotes and amazing things which you can take. I relate to the fifth one most, which a lot of youngsters and we all face is the challenge with comparison. And he says no one can compete with you on being you. So most of the life is a search for who and what needs you the most, and escape competition with authenticity. If you're building or marketing something that's an extension of who you are, no one can compete you on that. So, for example, I read a lot and I have combined my reading with writing. So, I write LinkedIn reviews, which are typically 10 to 12 points after reading an entire book. I don't think many people can do that because that requires a lot of rigor. You have to have very passionate about reading. You have to be very passionate about writing. I create doodles, and typically these are learnings from various authors. It is also a difficult activity on a very consistent basis. So I'm being myself. So if you are being yourself in any activity you do, no one can compete with you. It's as simple as that. The less you want something, the less you are thinking about it, the less you're obsessing, the more you are going to do it in a natural way. That's a very fundamental thing which I learned from this book. And he said spend more times taking big decisions. So big decisions are typically decisions which you take in life, where you live, who you are with, and what you do, right? And finally, inspiration is a perishable act on it immediately. So if you have got some idea on some inspiration, write it down or take some action. uh, Finally, the fourth book, which is which is one of my top books, and this is by late Professor Clayton Christensen. Professor Clay was one of the top management thinkers in the world. He is the person who coined the word disruptive innovation several decades back, and he was the advisor to a lot of top CEOs, including Intel and the group. He advised Intel on coming up with new innovative chips. He was also on board of TCS for several years, advising the company on the innovation strategy. And the book he wrote, he unfortunately passed away last year due to cancer. And I had a privilege to meet him in 2018 when I visited Harvard. And I took this book of his while traveling from India, and I got the book signed by him. And this is my photo with the book. And the book he wrote about is not about innovation, but it's about how will you measure your life. So most of us are running behind goals which may not be ours, but which are defined by society and a lot of other factors. But how do you ensure that you do something in life which is measurable and you feel great about? That's what this book is all about. And he shares a lot of good learnings. And one of the key takeaways is to find happiness in your career, you need to continue looking for opportunities which give you ability to learn new things which are interesting and challenging, allow you to grow professionally, and provide opportunity to increase your responsibility. So a lot of us may be doing, maybe looking for a role which may give us higher compensation, but that's just one of the very hygiene factors what he's talking about. There are not a lot of other factors which may give you more lasting happiness over long term. The other thing he talked about, many students, young folks think that they're supposed to have the career plan. The challenge in real life that doesn't work. So you need to be emergent. Emergent means you need to be open to possibilities and experiment in life. Learn from each experience and iterate quickly. So I may have started as a IT software developer 17 years back in my organization, but I now moved to academic relationship management. Was something very different. I never dreamt of or started imagining that when I started my career. But as the opportunities came, I took those opportunities and iterated. And that's what is the key thing which he's trying to tell. uh, Fourth thing, very very key point, we have personal resources which include personal time, energy, talent, and wealth, and we are using it to grow several businesses in our personal life. uh, but the key point is having a great relationship with your spouse if you're married, raising great kids, succeeding in our career, contributing to community, because our resources are limited, and all of resources are competing for your time, energy, talent, and wealth. How you allocate resources should be consistent with your life strategy. So if you want to live meaningful life, but you're spending most of your time in social media, or most of your time in gossip, or most of your time on some other activities, then then the way you are spending your time is not aligned with your life strategy. That's what the point he's trying to make. And finally, work can bring us a sense of fulfillment, but it pales in comparison with happiness which we can find in close relationship we cultivate with our family and friends. Last book which recently came out from by Mr. Harish Bhatt, who's the brand custodian of Tata Sons, is 40 Timeless Tata Stories. It kind of got viral on LinkedIn. There are uh, several people who shared about these book. The book has fantastic stories about Tata Group, which are very, very inspiring. Whether you are a student, whether you are a business person, whether you're an entrepreneur, you want to have your own startup, these are stories which are worth reading and worth getting inspired from. So, if you know the top institute in India in terms of research is Indian Institute of Science, which is among the top most rated institute by QS University ranking. And the institute was started after a chance meeting between Swami Vivekananda and Jamsetji Tata when they were both traveling to US on a ship. And Kalpana Chawla, who was the famous astronaut who unfortunately passed away in the crash of Challenger, when she went to space for the first time, the one photo she carried was about the JRD Tata's flight, which he took from Karachi to Mumbai, to recreate the pioneering first flight he took 50 years back. So JRD Tata was uh, the person who had the pilot number one in India. He was the first one who got his pilot license issued in 1932. So there's fantastic stories like these, how Tata Group lady Meherbai Tata, who was the wife of Sir Dorabji Tata, uh, basically put her diamond, Jubilee diamond, which is biggest in sixth biggest in the world and twice as big as Kohinoor, uh, for a loan to basically pay Tata Steel, which was struggling in 1924, after the First World War. So a lot of these stories, wonderful one, and you can get inspired from. So these were the books and key takeaways I wanted to share. I am now I can now open for questions. If you have any uh, thoughts, questions, we can surely discuss. So, madam, if you can take the questions from the audience.
Sure, sir. Yeah, we have one question from Shubham Nachle. He has asked how to put up with reading books with zero insightful images.
Sure. So, if I can request, if Shubham, you can come on video. If I may see you, it would be great because that's more of a live conversation. Shubham, the question is not very clear. So, can you elaborate what is meant by with zero images? You mean to say the book doesn't contain any images, book only have words? Is that the question you have?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So most of the books you would not find images. They would have text. Some of the books may have some charts, diagrams. But I think the beauty of the books lies in the word. Okay, so if you don't like uh, if you like books which have more images, then you can read books which are more in comic format. That is also a new genre which is coming up. If I may ask you to put yourself on mute, I think there's some background noise. I hope I answered that question. Shubham? Yeah. I think Devesh had a question. So Devesh, your question was, can we start multiple books at a time? Yes. Uh, Again, it's a personal take, but I would say I do that a lot. I read multiple books at a time, and the reason is simple for me. The reason is I use books for different occasions. So when I am going at night, when I'm reading just before sleeping, I would read a book which is more light, which is say biography or something which relaxes me. While in the morning, I will read books which are more heavy, which may be more research focused, and which may give me some outcome which I want to use, or a concept which I want to imbibe in my life. So I read at least 3 to 4 books at a time, multiple books. But it may depend on your personal take, but it works for me definitely. Devesh, if you have a comment, do please share. No, you can come on audio. I think there was one more question from Akshita. Akshita, are you there? Yeah. So, madam, can you unmute Akshita if possible? Or if you can unmute Devesh for a minute, and then Akshita.
Hey, Gaurav, hi. Am I? Oh,
Yeah, Devesh, you're audible.
yeah, thanks, Gaurav. Thanks for your reply to Gaurav. Just that I just faced one what is problem, not so, but the challenge which I face is if I go on with the multiple books is I am not able to complete one book at a time, because at times the pointers which you mentioned, that we may not find time, or we may lose the consistency or so. So if in case we are going with say 2 books per se, then any best practice which you wanted to share by which we can make sure that yes, we will try to complete both the books on one fine day, like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So Devesh, so completing a book is also a kind of psychological thing, I would say. So I have not completed every book which I start. So that's the first I would say thing which I would share. Okay, but I have completed most of the books. Now what I do is I typically leave books at a logical juncture. So basically, if I realize that I'm not able to understand the concept, or I'm not able to relate to the concept which author is sharing, I'll probably stop and pick up the other book. Second is, if you continue with the number of pages or some target which you have defined, you would be able to complete a book for sure, right? Because if we don't define a target for ourselves, then we may read for few minutes, and then if we don't have interest, we may keep aside the book. But if you have a target, that's a guiding light. So if I have a target of 50 pages, I know 250 pages book, if not 5 days, I'll complete in 10 days. And I may skip some things which are not very relevant to me, so I may skip that chapters. I hope that answers your question. uh, Akshita,
Hello, sir. Very good evening.
hi, thanks for joining in.
Pleasure, sir. Sir, my question was, keeping that continuity while reading a book. Like sometimes back, before even I started with reading a book, I had to force myself to sit, read at least 2 pages in a day. It was like that. I was not continuous in reading the book. I was finding very difficult in reading. So I asked this question, ki how to keep that continuity, or I can say how to keep up that zoom.
That's a wonderful question, Akshita. I think most of us face that, and uh, I've created some kind of hypothesis around it. The reason is also, you might be spending considerable amount of time, of course, on taking your classes, or uh, being on social media, or say watching YouTube or a TV or a OTT platform like Netflix or Amazon Prime. The challenge with that is that gives you a lot of dopamine rush. And the problem is, the dopamine rush you get from reading is a slow one, right? You may not get that excitement immediately which you get while watching a video, or while getting some link to a YouTube, or a movie on a Netflix, right? But it is slow and steady, I would say. Hence, at least what I have done, I have reduced that time. So if you continue, spending the same amount of time on the other platform, you may find it difficult to manage your concentration with books, because both have very different effect on your brain. So one way is to reduce that time, whatever you are spending on the other media. Second is, pick up a book which is really exciting or interesting for you. So, what book are you reading currently? So, Akshita, okay, Awaken the Giant Within, and this is by, okay, Tony Robbins. Yeah. So that's a great book, but the challenge with that might be that it has a lot of concepts which, unless you apply or you have seen it in your life, you may not be able to relate it. So I would say pick up something which you can relate to. For example, if you pick up something like 40 Tata stories, you will be able to relate to, because you may have heard about these figures, Swami Vivekanand, J.R.D. Tata, right, or Ratan Tata, or how the first airline of India was created, and so on. So pick up something which you can relate to and which interests you, at least to start with. You can pick up a fiction also, right? Some genres which is really exciting for you. The books which are related to coaching and which are related to heavy concept, unless you have experienced that or you are in a workshop, you may not be able to relate to that well, or may be able to concentrate on that for long. Even I face that challenge, I would say. Thank you. What was, Madam? Are there any other questions from the audience, or they can still type it on the chat window? I see a question from Professor Mehta while others may be sharing their questions. So I select my books, Professor Mehta, based on the key interest. So that's a very good question. That how do you select a book? So one is you go to Amazon or any Flipkart or any other site and look at the top rated books and just get them and start reading them. I used to do that in the past, but that didn't work for me. And the reason is that top rated books might be top rated by someone else, but they may not be of area of interest for me, right? So then what I started is I started looking at two things. One, books which are recommended by people I admire, right? So they can be business leaders, they can be academicians, they can be people whom I follow on LinkedIn. And if they're recommending something after having read that, that puts a weight to the recommendation, because Amazon recommendation are typically taken by a lot of people who may or may not be from same field as you. Second, I pick up books which are of specific broad categories which are of interest for me. So, for example, one is spirituality, which is more towards mindfulness or meditation, which is one interest. Second is creativity and innovation, because that's the work I do. Third is about mentoring and coaching, which is again something which I focus on. Fourth is about startups. Fifth is about habits, because habits create a lot of positive change in your life. So these are broad categories under which I typically get my books. I look at what are people saying. There are sites like Goodreads where you can find these recommendations, or through people whom you follow and you admire. So that is my take on that. How do I select my books?
Thank you so much, Raman. So it gives kind of like a good input on selecting. So I also used to do the Google Reads, and from the Google Reads, the reviews, and also from the recommendation, like people like you who are like a very frequent reader and some other friends. So that way I choose, but still not satisfied, and I could not find any particular like the perfect method for. But whatever you said, that is useful. Thank you.
Yeah. So there may not be perfect method, because all of us are unique, and what I may like may you may not be of interest to you or someone else, right? But I think with experimentation, uh, uh, we may perfect that process. So there are still, I would say, 20% books which I buy, but which I'm not able to complete because I'm not able to relate to those, or they are too complex, or you know they are something which I'm not able to connect with. Yeah, but I'm still trying to improve on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I have received one question. May I ask?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. It is like these days, thousands of bestsellers as well as new releases are available in the form of audiobooks. So they can be installed very easily on any iPhone or iPad or maybe Android. So we would like to know your opinion or your views on this.
Yeah. So there are number of ways today, how we can read books, right? So one way is of course physical books, which is the oldest way. Second way is to have a Kindle. A lot of people do that. Third way is audiobook, which you just described. Um, I have tried audiobooks, I've tried Kindle, and I've tried physical books. Now, there is no answer which works for all. That's the first thing. For me, what works is a physical book. And the reason is simple. because physical books give me one a feeling of having something which is tangible, right? The other two things are mostly intangible. So audio is of course very intangible, and Kindle is also is such a device, but reading on a device is not I don't find it very comfortable, right? Second is audiobooks. I experimented for several months. I took Audible subscription and I used to listen. But the challenge is for audiobook, either I have to have something in my hand if I want to take the key takeaways. For example, I note it down. For book, what I can do, I can just highlight and I can put a marker or a point and I can just refer, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I do that in Audible, or a audiobook? It is, you may, so it's like listening to a song, right? You may enjoy it, but finally for me there has to be some takeaway also. So it is useful, say you are going for a running or you are driving or say you are going to a gym, then audiobooks and something like that can be really good because it may inspire you, and then maybe after listening to a talk you may take one or two key takeaways which may write it down and you may use it in your life.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We have one more question. If you permit, I can ask
sure,
that.
sure.
Yeah. It is like, if you can tell us some ways to develop interest amongst students who engage themselves in research programs.
Okay, so if is this context related to reading? I'm just trying to connect it in some way. So if you can share the question again, ma'am,
Yeah,
especially the
yeah.
last two lines.
Yes, yes. The question is, what are the ways to develop interest in students to engage themselves in research programs?
Yeah, I think the key to develop interest is to follow the leaders in that area, right? So today, when I work with leading academic institutions globally, and primarily they're all research institutions, what I do is I follow them on several mediums. One, in most of the top universities, including Indian universities, you can subscribe to their newsletter. That's a great way to develop interest in research, right? Because they send you updates of what is going on. Second, what has happened since last year, since pandemic, a lot of the programs for these universities, you know, including if you take top universities in US like MIT, Stanford, Harvard, a lot of their programs are open. When I say program, I say talks about researchers, what they're doing in their field or area. That's a great way. If you subscribe, you may get a mail. Okay, for example, Cornell does a lot of free programs, and you can attend these programs at your convenience once a week, say in evening for 1 hour, and you listen to an idea or a researcher what work he or she is doing in say multidisciplinary area, which may be of interest to you, which may generate more interest for you to pursue that research further, right? So either to may start reading more papers on that research, or you may probably try to connect with that professor through some means to see if you can collaborate, and there are a number of other ways. But I think the key point is to have your inspiration in that field if you want to take or work in that area.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening answer. And I'm sure that our audience, who all are present here, they have enjoyed this talk to the thrill of experimenting or reliving and exploring through the habit of reading books. I'm very certain that your talk has inspired many to develop their reading skills to a more profound level. It was a great interactive session, I would say, and I have truly learned a lot from this talk. I'm sure that our viewers have loved it.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mitali. I would like to take this as an opportunity to essentially thanks Vidyalanka Group, Vtalks, yourself, Professor Deshpande, Professor Deshmukh, and Professor Mehta. I think it was a good opportunity for me because when I do this talk or a session, I also revisit my love for reading. I look at my books which I have all read or cherished my signed copies, and I hope it can inspire few people on their reading journey. Either they can start reading new books or they can continue reading books and write about those books in various platforms. So thank you. It was a wonderful opportunity to interact with the audience and share my thoughts and also engage in a conversation with questions from them.
Thank you once again, Gaurav sir, for giving us your valuable time from your busy schedule. I would also like to thank our management for their support to make this event a great success. And my sincere thanks to Dr. Mehta sir and Professor Deshmukh sir for organizing such an interactive and informative session for all of us and giving me this opportunity to be a part of this Vtalk series. I also extend my gratitude towards all members of audience and the people who are involved either directly or indirectly to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.